Good day and good morning. And if this is later in the day sometime for you, I'm so glad you're here watching the replay. This is Tracy Brown, your somatic nutrition expert and attuned eating body image, facilitator. And I name myself different things all the time. Anyway, I hope you're having a really good day if you're watching this. Thank you everybody who's watching live. And I have a little bit of a Q&A, so I'm going to be looking down to my left several times here to answer some of the questions that I've gotten over the last couple of weeks. And I think that some of these questions actually came in before we've all been on a different way of life right now. And but they're super appropriate for these times. So let's just dive in and get started. If you have any questions, please tag me below, or you can message me anytime. All right, well, let's get started. So I have my coffee with me this morning too. All right, so I have a question: is how to sit with uncomfortable feelings of wanting to binge, and how do I incorporate compassion? Well, the first step is really, can you start to know something? This is from Deb Dana. Can we start to learn? This is kind of a little intellectual, but it will help us understand why bottom-up approaches are so important. So how do we sit with the feelings can you start to recognize what feelings, sensations, circumstances, people, whatever, are something Deb Dana calls triggers. And then we start to bring in something else she calls glimmers. Okay, so a trigger is maybe for you holding still. Maybe for you right now it's the news. Maybe it's not being as distracted. Maybe it's certain foods. Maybe it's just sensations in general in your own body that you are learning to have some tolerance for. All right, so how to sit with those uncomfortable feelings internally, wanting to binge, or even just otherwise, is just have compassion. Number one, that we do have circumstances and situations that are uncomfortable. And just labeling them as uncomfortable versus bad and dangerous is really important, because there's a giant distinction between what's feeling actually dangerous and what's really uncomfortable. And so can we bring compassion for, of course, like uncomfortable is uncomfortable. Nobody likes that, but it doesn't mean it's a threat. And then we start to think about, what are my glimmers? So it's simply like, I use this phrase a lot with clients, is like, we've had too much of this in the past where we felt like our needs weren't attuned to and met. And are we the ones to stand in the gap for, I don't deserve to be abandoned anymore, and that's what I'm going to do. And so that's how it starts. Compassion might also just look like, I'm having a really hard time, and that kind of self-talk. It could mean that you've kind of caught your glimmer or your triggers, and you're saying like, look, if that starts to come up, and too much free time right now is really triggering me, what's the opposite? So I need to put some more loving, I use productive really gently, because some people that's a thing for, but it's more about what are some things that lovingly I can put in my day, in my space, instead of just sitting and stewing on what we don't like, or what's not working, or what we're upset about. You're allowed to be upset about any of the things. And in those circumstances, remember that rumination is maybe a trigger. And so instead of restricting or binging, like full out, whatever. So whatever behaviors you're not liking right now, it could really be understanding that is an autopilot, and knowing that you have choices. And that's actually an act of compassion as well. And choices might be laying on the floor. It might be going back to bed and cuddling up. It might be just get outside, drink a hot cup of tea. There's all kinds of things that we can list as our glimmers. Joy. What are some things we can let ourselves have? All right, so next question is, my challenge is my busy brain. I have so many thoughts running all the time. Okay. So if your mind is really active, and I'm not a psychiatric expert, but of course I'm hoping you're seeing your professionals if medication is a tool for you around that, but somatically a tool really for a running mind around food, let's say. I'm just going to keep it in the food realm because I'm a dietitian, and body image, is if you're having ruminating thoughts about calories, about what you look like, about your clothes, something really simple I tell people is that we need to say, no, we're not doing that right now. And again, if you listen to the resource call I did this weekend, it's really catch those thoughts and push against the wall. Go put your feet in the water. Pet your dog. Like essentially redirect. We're not doing this right now. And rumination and spinning thoughts about food, weight, calories, eating less, I gotta get the food, is usually a flight response. And we need to either do 10 jumping jacks or push against the wall or do a sprint or provide physical comfort. So that would be my answer for that question. And then you can use your health at every size and your intuitive eating principles and guidelines and all the stuff you already know or that you're learning and put that into practice. But you have to bring the body up into safety, bring your head down. And even if you don't feel like you have physical safety right now, it's like, well, what are my options? To do the life-affirming thing, which is eat or comfort, or is it just to spin anyway? Okay, and again, I know that not all of this is going to fix you or fix anything, but it's more about orienting towards what's less scary. Okay, this week in my journaling came up that I need to develop more distress tolerance. I need to practice being with a sensation. Okay, great. That's awesome if you're noticing that. Or if your home note when things are stressful is to dig in more with work or to get irritable or to want to fight or whatever. Again, notice those sensations and what does it need and what is it that you physically can do. This doesn't mean go run 3 miles. It doesn't. None of these are about exercise per se, but they are about what things we see and hear and can touch, whether it's warmth or water or a smell, that can help us, again, bring the body into some presentness to orient to what is good around you, or at least is good enough. And that's a practice, So again, I will say that if you're not eating enough, these things are really hard to do. So if you are restricting, my first thought is something you can do to improve your distress tolerances. It feels like the opposite, but what you can do is actually eat. If you have to eat mechanically, do so. All right, another question is, all these are very similar, by the way. In the past, I've been driven by my mind. Now I'm seeking to drop down to my body. It's new and scary. As it is for all of us. We disembodied for a very good reason. We split off from maybe our joy or our self-compassion because we didn't feel like it was there. And so why would I want to give it, even offer it to myself if I don't feel like I deserve it because these bad things have happened? I might as well diet. I might as well starve. I might as well eat. That's a collapse. And we don't want to feel that again. And I totally get that. But using food won't help us come back home either to our bodies. And so maybe it's just more about recognizing, oh yeah, I don't want to be inside for a very good reason, but it's not because my body did something wrong. It's because there was something that was too much or not enough. And if you can recognize what your too muches and not enoughs are, whether it's care, compassion, relief, safety, then you can start giving yourself that in whatever ways we can right now, as we're still all doing new life right now. I so relate to being busy as an escape. Yep. I would say I call it a soft compulsion, meaning you're not going to get too much, except maybe from your family, flack for being really productive. But maybe your body needs you to rest. Maybe your heart and mind need you to just be and enjoy and not be on all the time. And that's going to bring up distress, because acknowledging needs also makes you acknowledge where they weren't met. And you might not have a memory of that, but it can be internally, somatically distressing. And our job is to, again, meet that with compassion. Of course, that's the way it was. And we're not in those times anymore. And so the last question I had, and anybody who's welcome and is listening live, please you're welcome to put your comments and questions in the chat below. And tag me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or maybe you just relate to this. And what are some things that you are doing? Please share. It's not just me always talking. I consider this a community that we help each other and we support each other. And without these questions that other people have bravely been willing to ask me, we're all not nourished and nurtured. And so, again, this is pretty much an all-somatic video I'm noticing here. So lastly, I'm gonna answer some food questions too. But lastly, I read something that staying busy, this is just like the other one, right, is trauma-based, so you can't focus on what you need when you won't slow down. Yep, that's true. I believe that staying compulsively busy. And there's a difference between I know what needs to get done versus knowing when enough is enough. And that so relates to food, right? So the yield response in the action cycle in our body, if we're able to yield, we're able to know when this meal, I'm sitting here with a plate in front of me, imaginary, I'm eating this meal, and I can stop when I'm comfortably full, satisfied, whatever. And we know when enough is enough. Now, people who struggle with the yield are people basically just don't know when enough is enough, and they stop short of getting their needs met, or they override where it is that has been enough. Okay? We are not talking about here early recovery when you are supposed to be eating as much as you need. We're not talking about that, because I know what extreme hunger is. Many people I work with experience extreme hunger. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the kind of hunger, that mental hunger, the physical hunger of needing to eat to replenish ourselves from having years of restriction. Not talking about that. We are talking about when there's been a period of I've been eating some food and I still struggle with stopping with regular, comfortable fullness. Or I always stop short. I never fully get to on the hunger scale, 7, 8. I don't let myself have that experience of completion. That has a lot to do with fully, okay, I've done everything in the action cycle. I'm really here. Okay. So much of people who aren't doing the yield are so up here. And that's because it feels like that's somewhere they can go. Out in the mind, out front here. And so in that place, there will never be life satisfaction. Never fully. Or full, I'm here. You'll have maybe parts of it, but it's not completion. And so that will, if you're struggling with a yield, it will directly look like what's on your plate. So if you're struggling with letting yourself fully have what you need and want with food, the lack of yield's in place. It's there for very good reason, but the things you can do to work on it are literally, if you're working today, I've talked about this hundreds of times, put a hot water pad or hot water bottle on your kidneys and let yourself be met there with something that can't hurt you. Let yourself take breaks every 45 minutes at work or with homeschooling or whatever you're doing right now, or even something that's maybe good. Can you let yourself feel when enough is enough? Like food. Yeah, food is good. Food tastes good. It nourishes us, gives us internal cellular sense of okay, I'm not going to die. I'm going to have nutrition and energy to keep going. It's when we override that and go past that we're looking for something else. And our job is to what else am I trying to fill? What am I looking for? And being appreciative about knowing that. So thank you all so much for watching. Please share this with people that you know that wow, I've never heard this stuff before. Or this is something I've been missing in my intuitive eating journey. I think this is the missing piece for most people. And I'm so grateful to be able to share that with you. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And I will be live again on Friday. And I want to continue to talk about how we can not be frozen in our fear around food and what we have available, and continue to work with what we have available. I would also love to hear your needs and wishes. I'm feeling really strongly wanting to be in the kitchen with y'all right now, but I need to hear from you if you're interested in that. In general, I think it's important that you are just saying where you're feeling stuck so we can continue to support each other. Thank you all who are also still watching, listening to that resource call that I did on Saturday morning. If you're on my email list, you have that in your emails. So I release it like on Sunday at like 7:30 in the morning. Please be sharing that email. It's so important because there are some resources there who are struggling financially, or if they're in need for food. Please, that's something you can do to help. That's something you can do to help others that maybe don't have the resources that you have. And I put a lot of other ways you can help others as well who need some food support. Like literally, they don't have enough, don't know where to get it, that kind of stuff. Or some ideas of what to do with food that it's not maybe convenience food. Lastly, be something that you can do is every day, give yourself one time, 3 times a day, where you just sit and find your feet, your seat, and your back before your meals. Bring yourself to a little bit of yield so you can have a lot of clarity about what your needs are. If you choose not to meet your own needs, okay, there's probably a good reason for that too, and be compassionate about it. So thank you all so much for coming, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye for now.